Let's be honest for a second. We've all been conditioned to believe that the ultimate endgame of Friends was Ross and Rachel. But while I was rewatching the series recently, I realized something that kind of shifted everything for me. While they were busy blowing up each other's lives for 10 straight years, two other characters were quietly building the only relationship that actually worked: Joey and Phoebe. They didn't just get each other. Psychologically, they were each other's secure base. And the reason they never dated? It wasn't a mistake by the writers or some weird lack of chemistry. It was actually a survival tactic. In this video, we're going to look at why their platonic love was more endgame than any marriage on the show. We're diving into the reparenting dynamic, the scarcity lens, and a concept called relationship anarchy. Honestly, this is the psychological framework that allowed them to crack a code that every other couple in the group just couldn't. To understand why they chose to stay platonic, you have to look at where they actually came from. And if I'm being real, it's a bit darker than the show usually lets on. Phoebe and Joey came from the most unstable backgrounds in the group. Phoebe was a homeless teenager who lost her mother to suicide. Joey was a struggling actor basically lost in the noise of a massive family. In a group of upper-middle-class professionals like Ross and Monica, Joey and Phoebe were the outsiders. They were the ones who didn't quite fit the mold. In psychology, we call their bond reparenting. And here's how that actually looks when you're watching. When Ross looks at Phoebe, he's always trying to fix her logic because he's a scientist. When Monica looks at Phoebe, she's trying to order her chaos because she's a perfectionist. They love her, sure, but they treat her like a puzzle they can't quite solve. But Joey just accepts her. He provides what Carl Rogers called unconditional positive regard. Whether it's rat babies or past lives, Joey doesn't roll his eyes. He doesn't need to understand the logic to accept the person standing in front of him. This is radical acceptance. And think about your own life. It's probably the rarest thing you can find. Joey's charm and Phoebe's eccentricity created this mutual weirdness that acted as a psychological shield. They were the only two who never felt like they had to mask who they really were just to be liked. But this connection isn't just about being nice to each other. If you look closer, their loyalty was actually a psychological defense mechanism. It was how they survived that group dynamic. Think about those monthly dinner dates. Most of us see that as just another fun sitcom tradition. But clinically, this is structural loyalty. Most friendships are built on proximity. You're friends because you're roommates or siblings or you used to date. But Joey and Phoebe's connection was intentional. They went out of their way to schedule time specifically to talk about the rest of the group and check in on each other. They were the only ones who didn't need the gravity of Central Perk to stay connected. But here's the weird part. This loyalty had a bit of an edge to it. There's this thing called boundary erosion. Now, that sounds like a bad thing, right? In most cases, it is. It's when the lines between you and me start to disappear. Think about that one friend who gets mad if you hang out with someone else, or the partner who needs to know your phone password. That's unhealthy boundary erosion. But with Joey and Phoebe, they practiced a functional version of it. We see it when Phoebe acts as a gatekeeper for Joey's life, treating his dates as short-term compared to their friendship, demanding he prioritized their monthly dinners over his romantic life. Or when Joey reflexively offers to give up his personal freedom and marry Phoebe just because he thinks she's pregnant and alone. They weren't just friends, they were an insular unit. They essentially said, the rules of the outside world don't apply to us. This brings us to the scarcity lens. In a world where Ross and Rachel were constantly on a break, Joey and Phoebe realized that intimacy without the threat of loss is the rarest thing on earth. They stayed platonic because they weren't willing to gamble their only safe harbor on a romantic whim that might end in a messy breakup. Wait, let's look at one specific fan-favorite moment that actually reveals a massive psychological layer. Remember when Phoebe was pregnant with the triplets and had that overwhelming craving for meat? For a lifelong vegetarian, this was a moral crisis. But Joey didn't just tell her, "It's fine." He offered to stop eating meat himself so that no extra animals would die while she was eating for the babies. In psychology, we call this mirroring and co-regulation. Joey wasn't just being nice. He was literally stepping into her moral framework to absorb her guilt. He was acting as her emotional surrogate. This is what fans love about them. But here's the deep dive. Most people in relationships try to win arguments using logic. Joey doesn't care about the logic of meat eating. He cares about Phoebe's internal equilibrium. He is willing to sacrifice his own primary joy, food, to maintain her peace of mind. That's a level of high-functioning attachment that we rarely see in the romantic couples on the show, who are usually too busy tallying up points or winning arguments. I want to ask you something and be honest with yourself. Why do we assume a wedding is the final boss of a relationship? Joey and Phoebe practiced what modern psychologists call relationship anarchy. It's basically the idea that every relationship should be customized to the people in it, rather than following a script written by everyone else. Think about the season 3 kiss. Phoebe was feeling low about her birthday and wanting to tick off one of her list, which is a perfect kiss. And Joey gave her that. A moment of profound emotional and physical support. It wasn't a bit, and it didn't lead to one of those awkward "what are we" conversations the next morning. Because they weren't restricted by the dating label. They could be brother-sister like 1 minute and flirtatious soulmates the next. Neither mode broke the bond. Compare that to the other couples. We see identity foreclosure. The moment Ross and Rachel become Ross and Rachel, they start to lose their individual edges. They become a brand. But Joey and Phoebe, they never lost their edges. They had the chemistry of a couple with the stability of a family. They proved that you don't have to own someone to love them. We have to talk about the marriage at 40 backup pact. Most viewers see this as a throwaway joke, but psychologically, it's a safety net. When you know you have a platonic soulmate waiting at the end of the line, you move through the world differently. You aren't as desperate. You don't feel that pressure to cling to the wrong romantic partners just because you're afraid of being alone at Christmas. Joey and Phoebe gave each other the freedom to be single, messy, and adventurous because they knew their secret pact was ironclad. While Monica and Chandler were stressed about the milestones, the house, the kids, the career, Joey and Phoebe were already living in a state of emotional completion. They didn't need a certificate to prove they were each other's person. In the final episode, everyone is moving on to a new nuclear family unit. But the bond between Joey and Phoebe is the only one that doesn't have to change. It didn't need a reunion or a reconciliation. It was already finished. It was already perfect. So, here's the reframe. We spend so much of our lives chasing the Ross and Rachel drama because we think that's what love looks like. We think love has to be a struggle. We think it has to be a question mark. But Joey and Phoebe show us that the most successful relationship in the room is often the one that doesn't feel the need to announce itself. Honestly, look at your own life for a second. Do you have a person who understands your rat babies? Someone who is your safe base in a world of being on a break? If you do, send this video to them. Let them know they're your platonic soulmate. Because in a world of breakups and constant shrinking to fit into someone else's life, a pure, non-judgmental bond is the greatest endgame you can ever achieve. If this deep dive made sense to you, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.